now want to do a logistic regression using SPSS and using the example that you will find in your textbook, which begins on page 316. We have our profile-d.save data set up, and so now we're going to come up to Analyze, and in Analyze we're going to come down to Regression, and in Regression we're going to do Binary Logistic, because remember we're having two categories in our dependent variable. So we're going to do binary logistic. We want to move our dependent variable, which is going to be life2, and that's way down at the bottom because it's been a transformed variable that they've added. And then we want to have our other variables, age, hours, education, RENCOM 91, number of siblings, TV hours. We want all of those then put into our independent variable group. Our method is going to be forward LR, forward logistic regression, and that's, you choose that from the drop-down box at that point. At this point, we're ready to go with this page, and now we want to come up to categorical. In categorical, if you have your different kinds of variables, you would put them in and change those, but all of our variables are in a way that we can use them in logistic regression. So we're just going to go on through this as the book discusses and go to continue. Then we want to come down to options. And in options, we have several choices that we can make. And we're actually going to do two different analyses. And that has to do with at each step and at last step. Both of these give us different printout material. And we want one of the printouts that's given in it at last step that's not included at each step. So we're going to do it last step first, so we get that table that we'll be able to use. Everything else we'll leave as it is, and then we'll continue, and then you can go down to style, and our style is fine as you look at that. And so everything now is ready to go, so we're going to say OK. And here is our printout. Now this is our at last case, and we're really actually going to go all the way down to the very bottom of this printout, and we're going to be looking at the very last chart that they provide for us, and that gives us our summary of the model that we want to be looking at. Notice that we have two variables that were included in the model, and both of them were significant. They did make a difference in the outcome and how the groups were predicted. And it's a little different again because I think we have some different numbers in the book, but it's very close. So you can see that we have a 60.2% of being correct in our classification. This is a moderate approach, and you'll see how that shows up in some other things. But if you want to, just print out this page, and you have that then for your discussion whenever you're doing this by yourself. But this is at last step, and you want to come down to the very bottom and see the step summary to show how many variables were included and that they were significant in that. And the chi-square for this model is this number right here, which you will want to include in your write-up as you move forward. Now we want to come back to our analysis, and we're going to do the same thing as we did before, except this time we're going to check. We're going to leave everything as is, except now when we get into categorical, we're going to go through that. When we get into our options, that's where we're going to now check and say at each step. So we will get the three bits of information that we need to make our 3 steps of analysis. So we're now going to say continue, and since everything is the same, we're going to say OK. And now we look through this printout. You have quite a bit of preliminary information that you want to look at. Basically, we understand that there are 570 cases in this analysis, and that is just of interest, so you can look down through. We're going to go through and this is just the individual steps that are included, and we want to come all the way down to this idea here, model summary. This is the first thing that we're looking at. And the model summary gives us these 3 ideas that we've been looking at. The -2 log likelihood, the Cox and Snell R-square, and the Nagelkerke R-square. These numbers, this number is very large. And so that's going to give us an indication that we might have some questionable findings. We want to be careful in how much emphasis we place on this, but that just gives us an idea of where we're going with this model summary. Then we want to look at the classification table, and we notice that overall percentage of correct classification is, for our case, 60.2. I think it's 59 point something in the textbook, but they're very close to one another. Think about this as a correlation coefficient, and this would be a moderate correlation coefficient. And so that gives us some idea that this is going to be an okay prediction, but again, with our likelihood of scores being so high and this being in a moderate range, we will take care in making our interpretations. But it's a fairly accurate model for predicting group membership. And then we want to look at our variables in the equation. And the two that we included were education and RENCOM 91. These were the two that were significant, and they have a fairly small numbers here in the XB, or the phi idea. Notice that this number is getting close to 1, and these are your odds ratios, and a ratio of 1 to 1 means there's no difference. So as this number gets closer to 1, you have a small chance, a small odds ratio of them making the situation. And so again, that reflects what we've already found, that this number, the -2 log likelihood, was fairly high. We have a 60.2% likelihood of being correct, and we have these odds ratios being near 1. So we're going to be able to make the prediction that education and RENCOM 91 have a prediction of what group you're going to be in, but they're not going to make a lot of difference in your idea. And that's where, when you read the write-up in the textbook, it says there's not a lot of difference in being placed in the likelihood of a lively lifestyle. And so that's reason, because we have these numbers that are close to 1. We're only at 60.2% in accuracy, and we have high logs here, which gives us an idea. So that when you look at your presentation of the results, it says the model correctly classified only, for our case, 60.2% of the cases. Regression coefficients are presented in table 2, and that's why you need the last step table, where the walled statistics indicate that education and income significantly predict life perspective, and that's what we found. However, the odds ratios for these two variables indicate little change in the likelihood of perceiving life as exciting as a result of this. So that's where you would look at in the logistic regression as you make your analysis using SPSS.